it better?
Yeah.
Okay, let's try like this. So, good morning everyone. It's good to be here and start a new series after the summer break. It's good to see you. And I'm really excited about the new sermon series. It was kind of quite challenging for me to prepare this one specifically because there's so much to say. There's so much you just don't want to put aside. So it's kind of challenging. What do you keep? What do you say? What do you take or put aside? And it was a struggle. It was a struggle. So when you meet someone for the first time, when you meet someone for the first time, like we met Hannah and Felicia maybe during this interview for the first time, the first question you normally ask, or the first thing they say is, what do you think? Again?
What is your name?
What is your name? What is your name? So, what is your name? That's one of the first steps you. I will struggle here with mine. Wait a second. I do a different thing. Sorry to. Okay. No, that's working. Okay. So that's one of the first steps to get to know someone. You introduce yourself. And every human being has a name. Every one of you has a name. There's no one without a name here. As far as I know. So your name is something that belongs to you. It's part of your identity. It's part of your personality. It's part of you, who you are. You have a name, and this is part of you. Your identity, your personality. And it's like in my mind came a picture like it's like a key. It's like a key to get in touch with you. If I say Ronald, everyone else knows I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to Ronald. So it's a key to get in touch with him. It's like a key to get in touch with someone. And it's always a special moment when parents must decide how to name their child. Like during the pregnancy, and there's so much discussion and so much pondering and research online and asking relatives and friends, what do you think? And it's kind of a nice and exciting experience. And Julie and Ben, they're expecting their first child next year. I think it's February. And I'm pretty sure, I'm very much convinced they already talk about names. 100%. And they talk, and they're very excited, and they laugh, and maybe they think of a name, and this could fit, and this would be nice. And so it's kind of a really interesting thing. Name. What is your name? Have you ever seen this name?
Is that like Elon Musk's name?
Elon Musk has, I didn't know that he's a father of 12 children.
What?
With 3 different women. 12 children. And one of his child he called by this name.
How do you even say
I don't know how they pronounce it. I don't know how they call him. It's kind of crazy. Maybe they just call him X, formerly known as Twitter. I don't know. It's kind of a weird name. My background, I'm from the Middle East, and what we usually do, or quite often do in the Middle East, is you name a child after a relative, or after a family member, or after someone who was close to you, after someone who is not alive anymore. So just to make the reason could be to honor him, to keep his memory alive, something like this. So my father was called after his father, to honor him. And so this is kind of a tradition. And in the Roman world, that's really interesting, the ancient Roman worlds, they sometimes took the easy way out with names. Some of them have just simply numbered their children. You know, like this. Primus, Secundus, Tertius, Quartus, and Quintus. That's very common Roman names. And they just numbered them. And the name, again, it's part of our personality, it's part of who we are. And nowadays, in this current days we live in, the days we live in, it's kind of one of the worst things you can do to a human being is take away his name and replace it with a number. Like in some nations, when you put someone in prison, the name doesn't count anymore. You get a number. It's part of dehumanizing someone. Names are important. Names are part of your personality. If someone takes away your name, he takes away your identity of who you are, part of it. I remember when I was a child, I met someone for the first time. We were kids playing, and this new kid came, and he introduced himself. I asked him, what is your name? He told me a name, but it was a wrong name. He just made fun of me. And I didn't know it was a wrong name. He just wanted to trick me or whatever the reason was, I don't know. And while we were together playing, in a group playing, this kid ignored me every time when I was calling him. I called him by the wrong name. I didn't know it was the wrong name. So I was calling this kid, and every time he didn't listen. And I called him with a louder voice to get his attention. But he didn't even realize that I was talking to him. That he made fun of me and forget about it. Like, it was kind of a weird situation. He ignored me. The reason was he ignored me because I didn't have the right key. Just like Ronald. It's the right name. That's his name. So if I call him, something happens. I didn't have the right key. Now let us read the passage in Exodus where God reveals his name to Moses. That's a really special moment. Let us read together Exodus chapter 3. That's a lot. Chapter 3, verse 1 to 15. If someone would be so nice to read it out loud for us, that would be great. Exodus chapter 3, verse 1 to 15. Whoever is ready, please.
Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that through the bush, though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. And Moses thought, I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up. When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called to him from within the bush, Moses, Moses. And Moses said, Here I am. Do not come any closer, God said. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. Then he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. At this, Moses hid his face, because he was afraid to look at God. The Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hands of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of the land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now go, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? And God said, I will be with you, and this will be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain. Moses said to God, Suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, The God of your fathers has sent me to you. And they will ask me, What is his name? Then what shall I say? God said to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. But God also said to Moses, Say to the Israelites, The Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and the name you shall call me from generation to generation.
Thank you so much. That's his name in Hebrew. The thing is, you just read the text, and there was not one time the name Yahweh mentioned. Actually, the name Yahweh is mentioned in the first text of the Bible. In the Old Testament, you can find it 6,800 times. But in our English translations, it doesn't matter if it's the NIV or ESV or different other translations. It's in German the same. You don't find the name. You don't find the name. The thing is, why? Why is it? The thing is, the Israelites were so in awe of this name that they at some point decided to replace this name. Every time the name is mentioned in the Old Testament, they replaced it with the title Lord. That's what you read, with capital letters, Lord. Because they were so in awe of this name. They were afraid of accidentally using this name in a disrespectful way. And I believe it was a mistake, because God explicitly said in verse 15, when we go back here, this is my name forever, the name you shall call me from generation to generation. This is this name, he wants to be called by this name. And we replaced this name with the Lord, because we are so in awe. It's still a mistake. There's a reason why he's saying this. The Israelites were afraid of accidentally using the name in a disrespectful way. In order to understand the meaning of the name Yahweh, that's actually in this passage 6,800 times in the whole Old Testament, and in this passage we have it 4 times. And in order to understand the meaning of the name Yahweh, we have to look at the whole situation here and beyond, also here in the text and also beyond that. And if someone would ask me, what is the most important thing while reading the Bible? The most important thing I've learned in studying the Bible, in reading the Bible, is pay attention to the context. Always. In every situation, pay attention to the context. That's so important. I cannot highlight this enough. Many false teachings are coming because of paying not attention to the context. Pay attention to the context. What is the context in our case, in this situation? God reveals his name to Moses and to the Israelites in the context of salvation. It's about salvation. That's the main topic. It's a rescue mission. God reveals his name for the first time, and it's a rescue mission. What is going on here? Moses is 80 years old. He's advanced in years. He's very old. And 40 years earlier, when he was still in Egypt, and he was part of Pharaoh's household, he was part of the dynasty, he saw himself as a leader. He saw himself as qualified and capable of liberating the Israelites. But he failed big time. He failed completely. And he eventually had to flee because he had killed an Egyptian official. And now, after 40 years as a shepherd, all the education, all the qualification he once had, all the hopes he had, they have disappeared. Nothing left. He is a shepherd. The situation right now is Moses, he's now working for his father-in-law as a shepherd. He's a worker. It's not even his company or his business. He's working for his father-in-law. He achieved nothing. He achieved nothing. And we read later, when we continue reading the text, a few chapters later, we read, he's not good in speaking. He's not good in public speaking. He don't want to speak to the Pharaoh. And God confirmed it and said, okay, you have difficulties with speaking in public and to people and to the Pharaoh. Here's your brother Aaron. He can speak. He is more articulate. He is more articulate than you. So no business, nothing achieved in his life, 80 years old, his life is almost gone. He has no qualification at all. He is not good in speaking. And then we read after this, also his sister, Miriam, her name, we read that she is very confident, a confident person, self-confidence. Much more than Moses was. Moses said in the text, in the midst of this passage, he said, who am I? Please don't send me. Who am I? No self-confidence at all. So no business, nothing achieved, not good in speaking, no self-confidence and everything. And I'm sure beyond that, more than that, there was a certain bitterness in his life, a brokenness, a depression in his life, at least in the first years after he escaped from Egypt. He was a broken man. Moses was a broken man who no longer had any ambitions. That's the context. That's the situation. God, please leave me alone. I don't want this anymore. This is not my concern anymore. I have no interest in this kind of business anymore. Send someone else. Verse 11. We read, Moses said to God, who am I that I should go? And he is right. He achieved nothing and he is not qualified. It would be like, I thought of someone who worked as a bricklayer for the last 40 years of his life. The last 40 years of his life, or maybe a farmer. He worked for 40 years in a completely different business. Bricklayer, farmer, whatever you can think of. And now God calls him and sent him to be head of a country with a population of millions. A bricklayer. Go there and lead the million people to the promised land. And the most difficult time of its history. That's crazy. It makes no sense. And this is not just true for Moses, it's also true for the Israelites. They were slaves. There were no hope, no qualification, no power, no strength, no way out for them. The Israelites were helpless, powerless, at the mercy of the overpowering Egyptians. And we can see that both Moses and the Israelites, they were not in a position to change anything. Change anything in their situation. I asked myself another question, and maybe you have the same question. Why did it take so long for God to show up? Why did it take so long? We don't know the exact number, but if we go back to the date of Moses' birth, it must have been at least 80 years of slavery, of oppression, of struggling. And I think it was probably between 100 and 200 years of slavery. 100 or maybe 200 years of slavery. Why did it take so long for God to show up? The next verse, in verse 7, we read, the Lord Yahweh, he said, I have indeed seen, he has seen it. I have seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them cry. And because of their slave drivers. And I am concerned, or the ESV says, I know about their suffering. I have seen their misery, I have heard them cry, I know about their suffering. So why did it take so long? Let me give you a personal example. In my life, quite a few years ago, I don't want to go into details, that would be too personal, but I had years where I really had a difficult time. I was struggling. A time where I was feeling overwhelmed, I felt powerless, I felt weak, I felt just exhausted. And I was not up to the challenges I was facing. And I prayed. I was a Christian during that time. I prayed. And I knew that I needed help, and I was asking for help. But in hindsight, I knew I wasn't ready for the help at all. I was not ready for it. Why? Because during all this time, the difficult times I've had, the difficult years I had, during all this time, on one hand, I was calling for God for help, but on the other hand, I was still trying to be in control, to stay in control. To call for help, but not letting go. And what has God done? He was patiently waiting for me to let go. It took years. And I finally had to, because at some point I was so exhausted, I just gave up. I said, okay, you have to take over. And he was exactly waiting for this moment. He was ready all the time, but I wasn't. He saw, he heard, he knew from the very beginning. The problem wasn't me, him. The problem was me. The problem wasn't God, it was me. After a few years, I gave up, and then he stepped up. And we see the same thing here. God had to wait until Moses, 40 years as a shepherd, until he was ready, and the Israelites were ready to completely surrender to him. They had to give up all their own plans and ideas and to follow him. You know, God, he has a wonderful plan for our lives. I believe this with my whole heart. He has a wonderful plan for our lives. And he said, let me go back to the passage. He said at some point here, I hope I can find it. bring them out of the land in a good, spatial land, a land flowing with milk and honey. He has a good plan. He wants to lead us into a land where milk and honey is flowing. He has good thoughts, a wonderful plan for the life, a land that flows with milk and honey. But it only works if you give up your own plans. Both at the same time doesn't work. They had to let go, they had to empty the hands so they are free to grab his hands. You know, it's not just in Canada, it's also in Germany, and I think in the whole world, we don't like words like surrender. We don't like these words. We don't like words like to let go. That's not very popular. But that's the precondition for us to experience deliverance and guidance. And that's the same for Moses, and that's the same for the Israelites, and that's the same for you. Surrender, let go. It's not popular, but it's a good thing if you know to whom you surrender. If you want to be free, if you want God's guidance, then you must surrender. Not 85%, he's talking about 100%. You have to give up your own plans. You cannot follow two plans at the same time. They go maybe in a different direction. So now, after all I'm saying, I was saying that we come closer to the meaning of the name Yahweh, the context. Moses and the people of Israel were too weak and utterly helpless against the overpowering Pharaoh and Egypt. And it took so long for God to finally rescue them after so many years, so many tears, so many prayers, because he had to wait until they were ready. He was ready, but they weren't ready. And he said, I see, I hear, I know. And that's true for your situation as well. Like whatever you're dealing with, whatever your circumstances are, God sees and he knows and he hears. God now explains to Moses his rescue mission. He says in verse 10, so now go, I send you, Moses. I am sending you to the Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, who am I? I already mentioned that. Who am I? And God's response is, it's not important who you are by human standards. It's not about your qualification. What do you think of yourself? It's about me. It's important who I am. Now we come closer to the name. I am. It's important who I am. Not what you bring to the table. Not what your qualifications are. Not what you think of yourself. It's not important who you are by human standards. It's important who I am. And finally, Moses asked the main question. Moses said to God, if I go to the Israelites, and they ask me, what is his name? Then what shall I tell them? And God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, thus you shall say to the sons of Israel, I am has sent me to you. And God furthermore said to Moses, thus you shall say to the sons of Israel, Yahweh, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. I am who I am. The name Yahweh is built from the Hebrew verb to be, and it essentially means I am, or I am who I am. And so what does this now mean in our context, in this passage we read? It means I am who I am, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. More names. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. What he means is, I am the God of history. I am who I am. I am the God of history. I am the God of promises. I keep my promises throughout the centuries. No matter what comes, no matter what you experience on your way, I am the God of promises. I keep my promises throughout the centuries. I fulfill my promises I've made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I am the God who fulfills his promises. Nothing in history can stop him. I keep my word. I am who I am from generation to generation. That is one meaning of the name. Another meaning is, I am who I am, the God of salvation. That's the context, right? That's the context of salvation. I am who I am, the God of salvation against all enemies, the greatest nations, all overpowering rulers of the earth. I am more than the Pharaoh. I am more than Egypt. I am more than slavery. I am more than violence and everything else. I am with the believers in this battle. And believe me, I am stronger, more powerful than anything else you could face in your life. I am who I am, the God of salvation. Nothing you fear can scare you. And the name also means, I am who I am, in your weakness, Moses, in your personal life, in your failure, in your feelings of inferiority, Moses. I am the one who calls, he is calling him for a certain thing to do. I am the one who calls, I am the one who equips, I am the one who qualifies, I am the one who proves. If God calls you, and we are all called, if God calls you, He will equip you, He will qualify you, He will give you everything you need to fulfill His purpose. I am with you. I am everything you need in your doubts, in your anxiety. I am sending you. We are sent. You are sent. I am sending you, and I am with you. I equip you with everything you need. And the name also means, I am who I am, the creator of the earth, who will help you to overcome all the countries he's mentioning in the text. I am the God of the promised land, and I will be with you. I'm the creator of the earth, and I will help you to overcome the Canaanites, the Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. I guess I was wrong, but you know what I mean. So all the countries, all the things in the future they will face, I am the creator, I will help you to overcome all this. I am also in control of all the unknown things in your life, all the things. If you let me, if you allow me, the precondition. And the name also means, if you let me, I am everything you need. I am everything you need. If you allow me, if you let me, if you surrender to me, if you hand over control, I will lead you to the promised land. That's the plan. I will lead you to the promised land. I am who I am. I am the God of presence. My presence is not limited. My presence is for sure not limited to this building here, 236 Finch Avenue, East Toronto. That's not the only place God is present. And I am present. The I am is also not limited to a specific event from 11 to 12:30 during our Sunday service. He is present. I am the God who is present. I am with you. And the name also means the great I am is present at your place, wherever you live, at your home, at your workplace, wherever you live. It also means there's no way you can hide from him. Impossible. You cannot run away from him. Pharaoh couldn't hide from Yahweh. He is always present. There's no way you can run away from him. Every single step on your way, he is with you. That's God. I am. I am with you. And if you let me, he will lead you to the promised land. If you let him, he will lead you to the promised land. But be aware, the precondition again, and think about it. Yahweh, the great I am, doesn't ask for much. He asks for everything. He asks for everything. He is not happy with less than that. Only when he is in full control, that's the truth. Also with the Israelites and with Moses, only when he is in full control, he can lead you to the promised land. Only when he is in full control, he can fight the enemies. The truth is also that it was not easy for Moses. Moses had a difficult time with leading the people to the promised land. The great I am, it was a challenge. His path was paved with difficulties, many challenges, struggles. But we saw, and Moses confirmed at the end, and in between, that everything Yahweh revealed about himself and everything he promised is true. It is true. He is the God of history. He is the God of salvation. He is the God of promises. He is the God of victory and so much more. If you let him, he will lead you to the promised land. And that's the I am we believe in. I am everything you need. That's our God. I'm everything you need. Let me close with a prayer.